In military test meant to crush humans becomes a warm-up routine. The climax erupts when Captain Maya leads her makeshift alien team through a simulation designed to break them. For 24 grueling hours, they face increasingly impossible scenarios. As others fall, Maya refuses to quit, adapting tactics and inspiring loyalty until the stunned administrator terminates a test she was never meant to complete, forcing the GDF to revise their entire understanding of human capability. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. The Galactic Defense Force Assessment Station gleamed like a silver coin against the black velvet of space. Captain Maya Mace Carter stood at the viewport, watching as the shuttle approached the massive orbital facility. Beyond the reinforced glass, the station's modules extended like metallic fingers, each one designed for a specific type of evaluation. Maya recognized the telltale signs of environmental chambers, combat simulators, and what looked suspiciously like a zero-gravity arena. She straightened her Earth Forces uniform, the dark blue material still crisp despite the long journey from Sol. The invitation had been unexpected. Earth's baseline soldiers, not special forces, just average infantry, requested for GDF combat readiness assessments. Maya had been selected as Earth's representative, though she couldn't shake the feeling that this was some kind of cosmic joke. At 35, she was hardly the physical specimen she'd been a decade ago. "Captain Carter," the shuttle AI announced, "please prepare for docking procedures." Maya collected her duffel bag, fingers brushing against the worn dog tags tucked inside her collar. She'd had them specially made, each one bearing the name of a recruit lost under her command. 23 in total now. Not a number she was proud of, but one she refused to forget. The shuttle docked with a pneumatic hiss, and Maya stepped through the airlock into a sterile white corridor. A holographic arrow appeared on the floor, guiding her toward what the pulsing text labeled as Orientation Chamber. Maya followed, boots clicking against the polished floor. She'd expected a military escort, not a glorified GPS system. The corridor opened into a vast circular room with stadium-style seating. What caught Maya off guard wasn't the architecture, but the occupants. Dozens of aliens sat in clustered groups, their diverse physiologies on full display. Maya recognized a few species from Earth's diplomatic briefings: the massive, rhinoceros-like Groth with their armored hides, the lithe, almost translucent Tukari, and several others she couldn't immediately identify. What they all had in common was a military bearing. These weren't diplomats or scientists. "Human!" a silky voice called out. A feline creature with golden fur and unnervingly vertical pupils approached. "I am Evaluator Terral. You are late." Maya checked her chronometer. "My invitation specified this time exactly." Terral's whiskers twitched. "Perhaps by your primitive measurements. Please take your seat with the other baseline specimens." Maya bit back a retort and found an empty section marked with Earth's flag. As she sat, she noticed other baseline specimens stealing glances at her. Some appeared curious, others dismissive. A particularly large Groth warrior sneered openly, his tusked mouth curling in what she assumed was contempt. A holographic figure materialized at the center of the chamber, a tall, willowy alien with 6 arms and silvery skin. The High Administrator, according to the insignia floating above its head. "Welcome, representatives." The Administrator's voice resonated without apparent effort. "You have been selected as the baseline physiological standards for your respective species. The Galactic Defense Force requires accurate metrics for all member worlds, and you will provide them." Maya frowned. So they were lab rats, not potential allies. "Over the next 48 standard hours, you will undergo a comprehensive series of tests designed to establish the limits of your species' capabilities. These tests are not meant to be survivable in their entirety." The Administrator paused, allowing that to sink in. We simply need to know at which point you fail. Murmurs rippled through the gathered representatives. Maya remained silent, analyzing the subtext. The GDF didn't expect anyone to complete all the tests. This wasn't an assessment. It was a breaking point study. Earth representative, the administrator continued, suddenly focusing on Maya. Your species is of particular interest. Given your lack of genetic enhancements, cybernetic augmentations, or evolutionary adaptations to extreme conditions, your performance will establish the absolute minimum baseline for GDF operational parameters. The Groth warrior who had sneered at her earlier let out a rumbling laugh. Several others joined in. Maya rose to her feet. With respect, Administrator, I'd like clarification. Are we competing against each other, or against the test itself? The Administrator tilted its head. An interesting distinction, Captain Carter. The answer is neither. You are simply data points in a larger study. Maya nodded and sat down. Data points. Not soldiers. Not representatives. Variables in an equation. The first phase begins in 1 hour. The Administrator concluded. Environmental tolerance chambers. Prepare accordingly. As the hologram faded, Maya unzipped her duffel and began methodically checking her gear. Standard issue thermal regulators, hydration system, emergency medical kit. Nothing special. Just the basics any Earth soldier would carry. Your species truly uses no enhancements? A soft voice interrupted her inventory. Maya looked up to find one of the Tukari hovering nearby, its translucent skin revealing the flow of iridescent fluids through its circulatory system. We have plenty of enhancements, Maya replied. Just not for baseline infantry. That's rather the point of baseline, isn't it? The Tukari's skin flushed blue. Embarrassment, perhaps. I am Linny, medical specialist. The rumors about humans are conflicting. Some say you are fragile as glass. Others say you are unnaturally resilient. Maya offered a smile. Both can be true, depending on the day and how much coffee I've had. Lini's confusion was evident, but before Maya could explain the joke, a harsh bark interrupted them. Talking won't save you, human. The Groth warrior loomed over them, massive arms crossed over his armored chest. I am Krell of the Stonefist clan. Remember the name, so you know who to thank when I drag your broken body from the chambers. Maya stood, not intimidated by the alien's superior height and bulk. Captain Maya Carter, Earth Forces, and I appreciate the offer of assistance, but I generally finish my own tests. Krell snorted, a sound like boulders grinding together. We shall see. Soft skin. The environmental trials have been calibrated for species with natural protections. What protection does your kind have against radiation? Vacuum? Caustic atmosphere? Training, Maya answered simply, and a stubborn unwillingness to die when someone else expects us to. Krell's 4 eyes narrowed, but a chime interrupted whatever retort he was preparing. All representatives report to Level 3 for environmental trials, an automated voice announced. Maya shouldered her duffel. See you in the chambers, Stonefist. The environmental chambers occupied an entire level of the station, arranged in a circular pattern around a central monitoring hub. Maya was directed to a changing area where she stripped down to her base layer, a moisture-wicking bodysuit designed to work with standard Earth Forces armor. The armor itself wasn't permitted, just the underlying support systems. Evaluator Terrell appeared as Maya was checking her hydration pack. The feline's whiskers twitched with apparent amusement. I've been assigned as your primary observer. Human. Lucky me. Terrell's tone made it clear this was anything but fortunate. I've studied your species extensively. Your homeworld's conditions are remarkably gentle. No wonder you've evolved so few natural defenses. Maya continued her preparations. We compensate in other ways. Yes, your quaint technological solutions. Terrell circled her, golden eyes analytical. No subdermal radiation shields, no enhanced lung capacity, not even basic thermal regulation implants. How does your military function with such primitive specimens? We manage. Maya sealed her suit. What's first on the agenda? Heat chamber, Terrell replied. Nothing extreme, just 70 degrees Celsius with 95% humidity. A pleasant summer day for most civilized species. Maya didn't react to the bait. 70 degrees was well within human endurance limits with proper hydration and cooling techniques. Uncomfortable, certainly, but far from lethal. Lead the way, she said. The heat chamber was a stark, red-lit room with metal grating for a floor. As Maya entered, she noted the steam already rising, the air thick and suffocating. Several aliens were already inside, including a silicon-based life form that seemed perfectly comfortable and a methane breather in a containment suit who was clearly struggling. Krell stood near the center, massive arms spread wide as if embracing the heat. He noticed Maya and grunted. Your skin is already leaking, human. Perhaps you should withdraw now. Maya uncapped her water bottle and took a careful sip. Just getting warmed up. Stonefist. For the next hour, Maya implemented standard Earth forces, heat endurance protocols, controlled breathing, minimal movement, strategic hydration. Her body temperature rose, but remained within safe parameters. She observed the others. 3 representatives had already been removed, including the methane breather, who had collapsed 15 minutes in. When the chamber doors finally opened, Maya walked out under her own power. Unlike several who staggered or needed assistance, Terrell awaited her, datapad in hand. Interesting. Your core temperature elevated only 4 degrees despite the extreme conditions. The evaluator noted. Some kind of technological assistance hidden in your suit, perhaps? Maya wiped sweat from her forehead. Just efficient biological design and proper training. We shall see if that holds true in the cold chamber, Terrell replied, whiskers twitching. Minus 100 degrees Celsius. No atmospheric humidity to provide insulation. The pattern continued through the day. From the freezing chamber, where Maya employed controlled shivering and isometric exercises to generate heat, to the radiation chamber, where she relied on her suit's modest shielding and the radiation protocols drilled into every Earth soldier. The toxin chamber proved more challenging, a swirling mist of compounds selected to irritate most species' respiratory systems without causing permanent damage. Maya's eyes watered and her lungs burned, but she maintained her composure, employing the filtered breathing techniques developed for Earth's chemical warfare scenarios. It was in this chamber that she noticed Lini, the Tukari medic, struggling. The alien's translucent skin had taken on a sickly yellow hue, and its breathing seemed labored. Without hesitation, Maya moved to Lini's side. Controlled breaths, she instructed, demonstrating the technique. Through your nose, if possible, shallow exhales. Our species absorbs through skin membranes. Lini gasped. Cannot filter. Maya quickly assessed the situation and made a decision. She unzipped a pocket on her suit and removed a small packet of emergency sealant, a medical polymer designed to cover wounds in toxic environments. This might help, she said, breaking the seal. It's designed for human skin, but it should create a temporary barrier. Where are you most sensitive? Lini pointed to the gill-like structures along its neck. Maya carefully applied the sealant, creating a translucent film over the alien's most vulnerable areas. Within minutes, Lini's breathing eased. Why assist competition? The Tukari asked weakly. We're not competing, remember? Just data points. Maya smiled. Besides, medics should stick together. When they emerged from the toxin chamber, Maya was surprised to find both Terrell and the High Administrator waiting. The Administrator's 6 eyes focused on her with unnerving intensity. Unexpected behavior, Captain Carter. The Administrator noted. Assisting another representative potentially compromised your own performance metrics. Maya squared her shoulders. With respect, Administrator, in the field, we don't leave allies behind, even if they're only theoretical allies at this point. Fascinating. The Administrator turned to Tyrrell. Note this behavioral anomaly in the human's profile. The final environmental trial was the hypoxia chamber, an atmosphere with oxygen levels gradually reduced until unconsciousness. Maya lasted longer than expected. Employing high-altitude breathing techniques and meditative practices to lower her body's oxygen requirements. When she finally did lose consciousness, it was a controlled fall rather than a collapse. She awoke in the medical bay, surrounded by monitoring equipment and the curious faces of alien physicians. "The human is conscious," one announced, surprise evident in its modulated voice. Maya sat up slowly, taking stock of her condition. Her muscles ached, and her throat felt raw. But otherwise, she seemed intact. "How long was I out?" she asked. 17 minutes, Tyrrell replied, appearing at her bedside with datapad in hand. "Most interesting, Captain. Your vital signs indicated extreme stress. Yet your performance degradation was minimal until the absolute oxygen threshold." "What's next?" Maya asked, swinging her legs over the side of the examination table. Tyrrell's whiskers twitched. "Rest period, then combat simulations at 0600 station time. I would suggest you take advantage of the recovery facilities. Tomorrow will be significantly more demanding." Maya found her way to the assigned quarters, a Spartan compartment with accommodations adapted for human physiology. She showered, rehydrated, and consumed the provided rations, which were surprisingly accurate approximations of Earth cuisine. As she lay on the too-soft bed, Maya reflected on the day's events. The tests had been challenging, but not impossible. What troubled her was the underlying assumption that humans were somehow lesser, a minimum baseline against which real species could be measured. Her thoughts were interrupted by a chime at her door. When it slid open, she was surprised to find Lini waiting outside. "I wish to express gratitude," the Tukari said formally. "Your assistance in the toxin chamber was unexpected." Maya gestured for the alien to enter. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Lini replied, gliding into the room. "They would not. Many species view these trials as opportunities to demonstrate superiority. Your approach is anomalous." "Maybe that's our superpower," Maya suggested with a half-smile. "Anomalous behavior." Lini's skin rippled with what might have been amusement. "Perhaps. The medics who examined you were quite perplexed. Your physiology shows signs of significant adaptation to stress. Inflammation markers, cortisol analogs, neurotransmitter adjustments, yet you exhibited none of the expected performance decline." "We call it sucking it up," Maya explained. "It's a technical term." This time, Lini definitely displayed amusement, a ripple of blue light coursing through its translucent tissues. "I begin to understand why your species has such contradictory reports. You are simultaneously fragile and indomitable." After Lini departed, Maya checked her gear one final time before stretching out on the bed. Sleep came quickly, another skill honed through years of military service. Her last conscious thought was of tomorrow's combat trials, and what new assumptions she might have the pleasure of disproving. The Combat Simulation Center occupied the station's core, a massive spherical chamber with reconfigurable terrain and holographic projection capabilities beyond anything Earth had developed. Maya arrived precisely at 0600, dressed in her bodysuit with minimal additional equipment permitted. Terrell awaited the representatives, looking smug. "Today's assessments will evaluate your combat readiness across multiple domains. We begin with weapons proficiency." A section of wall slid open, revealing an arsenal of unfamiliar devices. Each was labeled with holographic text, identifying species of origin and basic function. You will each test 5 weapon systems from species other than your own, Terrell explained. Scoring is based on accuracy, adaptation speed, and overall effectiveness. Maya approached the arsenal with methodical curiosity. She selected a Tukari pulse rifle, lightweight, likely energy-based, a Groth percussion cannon, heavy but devastating, and 3 others that presented interesting tactical possibilities. The firing range materialized around them, a complex arrangement of moving targets at various distances. Maya watched as the first few representatives tested their selections. Some adapted quickly. Others struggled with unfamiliar ergonomics or firing mechanisms. When her turn came, Maya hefted the Tukari rifle first. It was designed for beings with longer, more flexible digits and a different shoulder width. She compensated by adjusting her stance and grip, analyzing the weapon's behavior through its first few discharges. The pulse rifle had virtually no recoil, but required precise timing between shots to prevent overheating. Maya established a rhythm, leading moving targets and scoring consistent hits. Not perfect, but respectable for first contact with alien technology. The Groth cannon proved more challenging. Its weight and recoil were punishing. Maya braced herself, using her entire body as a shock absorber. Her first shot went wide. The second clipped a target, and by the third, she'd begun to anticipate the weapon's behavior. Impressive adaptation curve. Human, Terrell noted, watching Maya's performance with newfound interest. Most non-Groth require at least 10 attempts to achieve comparable accuracy. Maya moved through the remaining weapons with the same methodical approach. Analyze, adapt, improve. When the session ended, her overall score placed her in the upper quartile of participants, not dominating, but far from the bottom, where Terrell had clearly expected her to land. The human continues to perform above predicted parameters, the administrator commented, materializing beside Terrell. Adjust the complexity factors for the close quarters trials. Maya pretended not to hear as she returned the weapons to their storage racks. So they were recalibrating on the fly, making things harder because she wasn't failing as expected. Fine by her. The close quarters combat simulation took place in a zero-gravity chamber designed to mimic the conditions of shipboard defense during gravitational system failures. Maya had trained for zero-G, but not extensively. Earth forces considered it a specialist skill rather than a baseline requirement. Representatives will engage in 3 scenarios, Terrell announced. Shipboarding defense, corridor clearance, and hostage extraction. Holographic opponents will register simulated damage based on your actions. If you receive critical damage, you are eliminated from that scenario. Maya found herself grouped with Krell, Leni, and 2 other aliens she hadn't yet interacted with. They would face the scenarios as a makeshift squad, an interesting twist she hadn't anticipated. The human will be our weakness, Krell rumbled as they entered the zero-G transition chamber. Stay behind me if you wish to survive. I'll try not to slow you down, Stonefist, Maya replied evenly. When the gravity disengaged, Maya felt the familiar disorientation, followed by the calm that came with proper training. She adjusted her breathing and positioned herself in a defensive posture, using minimal movements to conserve momentum. The first scenario, shipboarding, began with a breach alarm. Holographic enemies poured through an airlock, armed with various weapons. Krell immediately launched himself forward, using his mass as a battering ram. The tactic was effective but left him exposed on multiple flanks. Maya pushed off a bulkhead and intercepted 2 enemies converging on Krell's blind side. In zero-G, human martial arts required adaptation, but the principles remained sound: leverage, momentum, precision. She disabled both attackers with targeted strikes to what she assumed were vulnerable points. "Your flank is clear, Stonefist," she called out, already repositioning for the next wave. Krell grunted, what might have been acknowledgement or merely exertion as he continued his frontal assault. The squad worked through the scenario with increasing coordination. Maya found herself naturally adopting a support role, covering angles and intercepting threats that slipped past Krell's devastating but somewhat predictable attacks. Lini proved surprisingly effective at disabling enemies with precision strikes to nerve clusters, while the other two squad members contributed specialized skills. By the third scenario, hostage extraction, they were functioning as a cohesive unit. Maya's suggestion to use Krell as a diversion while she and Lini extracted the hostage was accepted without argument. The plan executed smoothly, and they completed the objective with minimal simulated casualties. As they exited the zero-G chamber, Maya caught Krell studying her with all four of his eyes. "You fight well for a soft skin," he finally said. "Your tactics are unexpected." Coming from a Groth warrior, this was high praise indeed. Maya nodded in acknowledgement. "You're not so bad yourself. Once someone watches your six." Krell's brow plates shifted in what might have been confusion. "Watches my six?" "You're back," Maya clarified. "It's an Earth expression. It means I've got your blind spots covered." The massive alien considered this, then gave a curt nod. "This is acceptable." The final combat trial was a simulated battlefield scenario, a sprawling, multi-terrain environment with objectives that shifted dynamically based on performance. Unlike the previous tests, this one had no defined endpoint. Representatives would continue until they failed or were eliminated. This simulation is designed to identify absolute performance limits, the administrator explained, addressing the assembled representatives. "You will face increasingly difficult challenges until you can no longer continue. This is not a test of victory, but of endurance." Maya understood the subtext. They expected everyone to fail eventually. The only question was how long each would last and what form their failure would take. The simulation began in a rocky valley reminiscent of Mars outposts. Maya found herself alone, equipped with a standard-issue pulse rifle and minimal support gear. Her first objective appeared as a holographic waypoint, 2 kilometers distant. She moved with practiced efficiency, using terrain for cover and maintaining awareness of potential ambush points. The initial encounters were straightforward. Small groups of enemy combatants with predictable tactics. Maya dispatched them methodically, conserving ammunition and energy. As she cleared objectives, the scenario evolved. Urban environments replaced open terrain, forcing adaptations in movement and engagement protocols. Enemy tactics became more sophisticated, incorporating flanking maneuvers and coordinated attacks. Maya lost track of time, focused entirely on the evolving challenges. At some point, she encountered Lini again, the Takari medic pinned down by suppressive fire from multiple directions. Without hesitation, Maya created a diversion, drawing enemy attention while Lini relocated to a safer position. They continued together, their complementary skills making them more effective as a pair than as individuals. Hours into the simulation, they encountered Krell and one of the other squad members from the zero-G trial. The Groth warrior was wounded, simulated damage that limited his mobility, but not his ferocity. "The scenario regenerates," Krell explained between heavy breaths. "No matter how many objectives we clear, new ones appear with stronger opposition." "It's not meant to be winnable," Maya agreed. "But that doesn't mean we stop trying." The four of them formed an impromptu fire team, with Maya naturally falling into the role of tactical coordinator. She assigned positions based on their strengths, established communication protocols, and improvised solutions when standard approaches failed. As the simulation's difficulty ramped up exponentially, other representatives began to fall. Some succumbed to simulated injuries, others to exhaustion or tactical errors. Maya's team persisted, adapting to each new challenge. When their makeshift base was overrun, Maya led them through maintenance tunnels she'd noted earlier. When ammunition ran low, she improvised weapons from the environment. when fatigue threatened their performance. She implemented rotation schedules to allow for micro-rest periods. 18 hours into the simulation, only Maya's team and 2 individual representatives remained active. The scenario had become almost surreal in its complexity. Shifting gravity, environmental hazards, and enemies that learned from previous encounters. "They're trying to break us," Maya told her team during a brief respite. "This isn't about completing objectives anymore. It's about seeing what it takes to make us quit." Krell's massive hand came down on her shoulder with surprising gentleness. "Then they do not understand the meaning of warrior, human. We do not quit." The simulation continued for another 6 hours. One by one, the remaining representatives reached their limits. The other fire team member collapsed from exhaustion. Lini's injury simulations accumulated until the medic could no longer function effectively. Finally, only Maya and Krell remained, fighting back-to-back against an endless wave of enemies in what had become a surreal dreamscape of battlefield conditions. "Captain Carter," the administrator's voice cut through the simulation. "You have exceeded the maximum expected duration by 163%. The assessment is complete." The holographic enemies froze, then dissolved into particles of light. The terrain flickered and transformed back into the empty simulation chamber. Maya lowered her weapon, suddenly aware of her physical state, muscles trembling with fatigue, uniform soaked with sweat, minor abrasions on exposed skin. Krell stood beside her, his massive chest heaving with exertion. The Groth warrior looked down at her, all 4 eyes blinking in what might have been astonishment. 24 hours, he rumbled. "No enhancements, no special adaptations." He shook his massive head. "Perhaps soft skins have qualities worth studying after all." Medical staff swarmed the chamber, attending to the various representatives. Maya submitted to examination, too exhausted to protest the poking and scanning. The physicians exchanged troubled glances as they reviewed her biometrics. "Your stress markers are off the scale," one physician noted. "Yet your performance degradation was minimal until the final hours. How is this possible without physiological augmentation?" Maya didn't have the energy to explain that this was simply what humans did: push through, adapt, endure. Instead, she asked for water and a chance to clean up before the debriefing. The debriefing chamber was more subdued than orientation had been. Many representatives were absent, either still in medical recovery or having withdrawn from the assessment entirely. Maya sat alone in Earth section, sipping electrolyte solution and trying not to fall asleep. The administrator materialized at the center of the chamber, its silvery form somehow conveying both authority and curiosity. "The GDF assessment protocol has been completed," it announced. "The data collected will inform training standards and operational parameters for the next 5 cycles. All representatives have performed admirably within the expected parameters of their species." The administrator's 6 eyes focused directly on Maya. "With one notable exception. Captain Maya Carter of Earth has demonstrated performance metrics that significantly exceed our predictive models for unaugmented humanoid species." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Maya maintained her composure, though she couldn't help a small smile at Terrell's obvious discomfort beside the administrator. "The Xenobiology Committee will require additional study to determine the mechanisms behind human resilience," the administrator continued. "However, the practical implications are already clear. GDF protocols based on minimum baseline capabilities must be revised upward by approximately 35% across all domains." Now, the murmurs turned to outright exclamations of disbelief. A 35% increase in baseline requirements would be unprecedented. Furthermore, the administrator raised all 6 hands for silence. "The assessment has revealed significant deficiencies in our current training methodologies. The human approach to adaptation, tactical innovation, and cooperative problem-solving offers valuable insights for GDF personnel development." Maya straightened in her seat, suddenly alert despite her exhaustion. This wasn't just about human performance anymore. It was about a fundamental shift in how the GDF viewed training and preparedness. Captain Carter, the administrator addressed her directly. The High Command extends an invitation for you to join the GDF as Chief Training Architect. Your experience and demonstrated capabilities would be invaluable in reforming our current systems. The chamber fell silent. Maya felt every alien eye upon her, some curious, some respectful, some clearly resentful. She stood slowly, conscious of her aching muscles and the weight of responsibility this invitation carried. "I'm honored by the offer. Administrator," she began, voice steady despite her fatigue. "And I accept, with two conditions." The administrator tilted its head. "State your terms, Captain." "First, I select my own instructor cadre, drawn from representatives who participated in these assessments." Maya glanced at Krell and Leni, who watched her with newfound respect. "Effective training must account for diverse physiologies and tactical approaches." "Acceptable," the administrator nodded. "And your second condition?" "I write the protocols," Maya stated firmly. "No committees, no bureaucratic revisions, no watering down standards to make them more palatable. If the GDF wants Earth's approach to resilience training, they get it undiluted." The administrator was silent for a long moment, its silvery skin rippling with what might have been amusement. "You understand this will make you quite unpopular with certain factions within the GDF hierarchy." Maya smiled tiredly. "With respect, Administrator, popularity isn't in my job description. Effectiveness is." "Then we are in agreement. Chief Architect Carter," the administrator concluded, "you will begin your duties after a mandatory recovery period. I anticipate your first training protocols with great interest." 6 months later, Maya stood before her first class of GDF trainees, a diverse collection of species, each selected for their potential rather than their current capabilities. Behind her stretched an obstacle course that combined elements from a dozen worlds, culminating in a mud pit that was purely Earth in origin. Krell and Leni flanked her, now wearing instructor insignia alongside their own military designations. They had been the first to join her cadre, followed by others who recognized the value in her approach. "Welcome to the first day of your new life," Maya called out, voice carrying across the training ground. "Everything you think you know about your limitations is about to be challenged." She gestured to the obstacle course. This sequence was originally designed as the final test in the Earth Force's infantry qualification. On my world, it's considered moderately difficult. The trainees exchanged nervous glances, some already reconsidering their volunteer status. "Here in the GDF," Maya continued with a grin, "we're going to use it as our warm-up routine." She turned to Krell, who activated his communicator. "Instructor Krell will demonstrate the proper technique for the first obstacle. Pay close attention. There will be no second demonstrations." As the massive Groth warrior lumbered toward the course with surprising agility, Maya caught Leni's amused gaze. "Still think we're anomalous?" she asked quietly. The Tukari's skin rippled with blue light. "More than ever, Chief Architect. But perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs." Maya nodded, watching as her first class prepared to have their preconceptions systematically dismantled. Her hand brushed against the dog tags beneath her uniform. 23 names that would never be forgotten. But now, joined by something new. The promise that their sacrifice had led to meaningful change. "Begin the warm-up," she commanded. "And remember, this isn't about being the best. It's about being better than you were yesterday." As the trainees attacked the course with varying degrees of confidence, Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The test meant to crush humans had instead revealed their greatest strength, not physical prowess or specialized adaptations, but the stubborn resilience of a species that refused to accept imposed limitations. In the end, that was the lesson she truly wanted to impart. The most dangerous enemy wasn't the obstacle in your path, but the belief that you couldn't overcome it. And if a baseline human could rewrite the standards for an entire galactic defense force, then perhaps there was no such thing as an insurmountable challenge after all. The mud pit awaited at the end of the course, Earth's special contribution to interspecies training. Maya smiled as the first trainees approached it, with visible apprehension. "Into the mud, recruits," she called out. "First lesson of Earth-style training. Everyone looks the same when they're covered in dirt. No special adaptations, no evolutionary advantages, just determination and the will to continue." As alien bodies of all descriptions slid, stumbled, and slogged their way through the muddy obstacle, Maya caught Krell watching with something approaching respect. "Your Earth mud is surprisingly effective training," the Groth warrior admitted. "It humbles even the proudest species." "That's the point," Maya replied. "Sometimes you need to strip away the advantages to reveal the warrior underneath." The training program would evolve over time, incorporating the best elements from dozens of military traditions across the galaxy. But at its core would always be the principle Maya had demonstrated during her assessment. True readiness came not from technological superiority or biological advantages, but from the fundamental qualities of leadership, adaptation, and unwavering resolve. As the last trainee dragged themselves from the mud pit, exhausted but triumphant, Maya stepped forward to address the group. "Congratulations on completing your first warm-up," she announced. "Tomorrow, we do it again, faster, better, stronger. That's the human way. That's now the GDF way." She dismissed the class to clean up and prepare for the day's actual training. As they departed, Maya remained by the obstacle course, contemplating how far she'd come from that first day on the assessment station. The administrator materialized beside her, its silvery form reflecting the artificial sunlight. "The High Command is disturbed by your methods, Chief Architect," it said without preamble. "They find your emphasis on physical hardship rather than technological solutions to be primitive." Maya watched as maintenance drones reset the obstacle course. "Let me guess. They haven't tried the course themselves?" "That would be beneath their station," the administrator replied, though Maya detected a note of amusement in its modulated voice. "Invite them to observe next month's qualification test," she suggested. "By then, these recruits will be running this course at triple speed while carrying full combat loads." The administrator's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "The Xenobiology Committee still cannot explain the mechanism behind human adaptive capabilities. Their latest theory involves undetected genetic modifications in your evolutionary past." Maya laughed. "Or maybe we're just stubborn. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one." "Perhaps," the administrator conceded. "In any case, initial performance metrics from your first training cohort show promising results. Continue your work, Chief Architect. The galaxy may not understand your methods, but it cannot argue with your outcomes." As the administrator faded from view, Maya turned back to watch her instructor team preparing for the afternoon session. Krell was demonstrating close-quarters combat techniques to Linny, their vastly different physiologies requiring creative adaptations of standard forms. This was her real achievement, not simply surviving the impossible test, but creating something new from the experience. A training system that recognized the value in diversity while demanding excellence from everyone, regardless of species or background. Maya touched the dog tags beneath her uniform one last time. A silent promise to those whose names were etched in metal. Their legacy lived on in every mud-covered recruit who refused to quit when conventional wisdom said they should. The warm-up routine that had once been designed to crush humans had become the foundation for a stronger, more resilient galactic defense force. And that, Maya reflected as she strode toward her waiting instructors, was a victory worth all the mud, sweat, and pain it had taken to achieve. "Instructor meeting in 5, she called out. "We've got a new challenge to design for tomorrow." As her team gathered around, Maya couldn't help but smile at how far they'd come. The baseline human had redefined the baseline for an entire galaxy. Not bad for a species with no special adaptations. Just another day in the life of Captain Maya Mace Carter, formerly of Earth Forces, now Chief Architect of the Galactic Defense Force, and living proof that the most powerful enhancement of all wasn't written in genetic code or built in a laboratory, but forged through determination and the simple, stubborn refusal to accept defeat.